Welcome to another tying video. In this episode I'm going to show you my Caddis Pupa.
If you're totally new to fly tying or you just want to brush up on a few fundamentals, we've actually put together a free video course that teaches you things like being able to attach your thread and start off at the beginning of making a fly, applying dubbing to your thread, and then a few different variations of the whip finish knot from simple to more advanced. If that's something that interests you, click through on the link in the description and you can start getting to grips with some of these basics, and that'll let you tie along with the patterns that we're making in this series.
This is a fly that's done really well for me and a few other people as well. It made a little bit of a name for itself a few years ago. I know a few people have used it in competitions and done well, even at international level. Originally I tied this with a hackle, but there's a great variant as well with no hackle, which I'm going to show you today. Get straight on with the tie-in. This is a size 12 fish-on compound curved hook with a 3mm tungsten bead on it, and on that I'm putting a bed of yellow UTS. If anyone's followed along with these videos so far, you're probably starting to realise I'm a big fan of yellow UTS. I don't use much else. Most insect patterns that I'm tying, I don't mind if any thread's going to show through. I don't mind it being yellow. If you've ever popped an insect, you know, crushed one on your boot or whatever, that juice that comes out usually is like a sick kind of yellow colour. So making the thread colour, you can't be far wrong, I'm sure. So I'm going to start by tying in a bit of a rib, and unlike many times when I tie ribs in just behind the bead, I want this fly or this pupa pattern to have a bit of a fat abdomen. So I'm going to start my tying in about 2/3 of the way back, because this is quite a fat rib I'm using and there's a reason for that. So just catching that down, giving this basically a bit of a head start to having a fat arse. The colour rather that I'm using is pale green in this Fish on NBC dubbing. It's a really nice sort of apple green, that kind of hydropsyche sort of green. If you've ever seen a hydropsyche or the underbelly of a the underbelly of a hydropsyche, or maybe even the underbelly on a ryak, it's got that really nice pale green about it. It's a lovely, lovely dubbing colour. So I'm just going to start putting a little bit on, but I'm going to keep adding dubbing and building up this abdomen as we go. So I'm not looking for that taper like we do with olive nymphs, where you've got a skinny back end. A lot of Caddis Pupa have got a really big fat backside. And rather than overface myself with tons of dubbing, I'm going to do this in stages. Just adding a little bit at a time until I'm satisfied with the fatness of this bug's arse end. That's starting to take shape now. Just a little bit more as I come forward. They're quite similar in sort of shape to a wasp in some ways, that sort of bulbous back end coming to quite a nipped in waist. So we can see that it's starting to get that shape, and you've got this big fat rib sticking out. So I'm going to come up with that rib now, and I don't mind getting a turn of this rib actually on the hook, so you get this sort of tail end to it. But what I want really fat rib. I don't mind taking my time sort of pulling this and getting it to seat just right. So I don't want it to stick in between these big bits of dubbing that I've dubbed on. So that kind of bites in. So we've got a lovely sort of striped rib there. That one's just wandering away from where I'd like it to be. That's not too bad. Just tie that off. Don't worry about that sort of thorax area, mil or two behind the bead, because this is all going to get covered soon. But I want that rib, nice sort of fat rib. So we've got big chunky looking segments in, you know, contrasting colours. I'm going to have a change of dubbing now, and I want the sort of real strong pronounced thorax. So I'm going for this shimmer dub from Fish On in peacock bronze. I also use the peacock green. Both colours look great. I want that kind of, you know, black iridescent sort of effect. So this is a bit more of a synthetic dubbing, so it's quite sort of crunchy, heavy staple dubbing. I don't really want it to go on too tight. I want a nice sort of leggy effect coming from this as well. So you'll see it's quite a loose rope at that. But once I get my first turn, I can tighten things up. And what I want to do is build up a bit of a kind of lumpy thorax. Just put a little bit more on. Just to finish off at the back of the bead there. And then I'm going to do a whipped finish, maybe 4 or 5 turn whip finish. And just bite them, but I'm not going to trim off because this synthetic dubbing is a little bit more unpredictable than the furry dubbings. So what I'm going to do now is give it a bit of a scrub. And if it all comes loose and doesn't have the effect I want, I've still got my thread attached. So I can add some more dubbing, put it on again. If you cut that thread, you're kind of stuck with what you've got, or you're then trying to start your thread on again behind a finished fly tungsten bead. I'm fairly happy with how that's scrubbed out. I don't need to go in picking any out. I can get rid of those green fibres just for the sake of the camera and neatness. But just looking at that, I'm fairly happy with the way that looks, so I can go ahead and cut my thread now. If I'd have wanted a little bit more of that peacock bronze dubbing in there, I could have just pinched some on and gone round again and then whip finished again. So if you're using that stuff, or if you're just not confident doing this sort of hackle trick that you might have seen me do in a couple of these videos so far, you can leave your thread attached until you've completed that sort of, you know, little dubbing endeavour at the top. Then trim your thread when you're sure that your fly is actually looking like you want it to. So we've got this nice juicy looking rib and the wonderful sort of Hydropsyche's belly green colour in there. You can vary that colour if you've got a particular caddis species that you know on your stream and you've got a colour that matches. By all means, stick whatever colour that you think matches for your hatch. I love the way this iridescent peacock works. It's very, very insecty looking, whether you use the green or the bronze. And again, you get that kind of almost like a bit of hackle fibres by teasing it out after you've dubbed it on. So that's a variation, if you like, on my Caddis Pupa. It's been an absolutely cracking fly for me and quite a few people I know as well.